Welcome everyone, it's Glacier Guy, Wrath Glacier as always, coming to you in ultra wide because that's the only way to play the game is in ultra wide. You can take your 4K and your 16 by 9. I don't want it. Get that 21 by 9. That's exactly what I need in my life. But anyways, I have a question about Alpha Shadowlands. Actually, about Shadowlands in general and how it's going to work. Unfortunately, I don't have Alpha and Beta's not out yet. Hopefully, I can get these questions answered when I get into Beta. But spicy content, spicy question. You might have seen from the title, how do item levels scale at level 50? Which is a question I have. Now, we have a really nice chart from Wowhead that will sort of answer some of my questions, but don't answer hardly enough of my questions. Because this all focuses mostly on gear from raids. So let's look at the little chart we got here. So there is an expansion level squish if you weren't aware. Basically, if you're level 120, you'll get squished down to 50 when Shadowlands releases, and then it'll kind of scale based upon that. Now the first chart on top is what is your pre-Shadowlands level and your post-Shadowlands level requirements for wearing certain tiers of raid gear. Obviously, for Vanilla, you have to be 60, Burning Crusade 70, so on and so forth, up to 120 for BFA. Now, for post-Shadowlands, for Vanilla, you'll be level 25 before you can throw on that tier 2, that tier 1 or tier 2 armor, because you can't get tier 3 anymore unless you can get it from, I think you can get it from the black market auction house. So I'm not sure how it scales though. But, or if you had it from before, you have to be level 25 in order to wear it. But if you had it from before, I mean, you could already wear it, so you should be fine. But now, Burning Crusades, you need to be 27, and so on and so forth. So those are the levels you need to be at in order to put on raid gear, which is fine. And then we have the item level stat squishes there, which might be a little interesting for what we're about to talk about. So this is all, once again, this is all raid gear. So raid gear is 58 to 59 for vanilla, and it's going to scale to 54 or 34 to 35, and then so on and so forth until you get to like the mythic Ulduir is 385, which I believe is true, yes, and then it's going to scale to 66. Now I do have a question. Now this talks about raid gear, so let's bring up question number one. And hold on, let me do my fancy scene switching here. We'll close that. Question number one: if someone locks their experience at level 50, which you can do where you don't gain any more levels past that, will they be able to queue for any previous expansion dungeon using the LFG tool? What do I mean by that? Well, so if you go to Group Finder, and I go, right now I'm level 120 on this character. If I go, all I can see under specific dungeon, because you can go to time walking right now, I have Cataclysm time walking, but I can go to basically any normal, any heroic that's in the specific dungeon for BFA. Now they've said that at level up to level 50, or I don't know if they said up to. Well, you can level from 1 to 50 in any zone that you want. There's some caveats based upon whether or not you're a new character, because new characters, they want them to go through the 1 to 10 starting zone, which that island looks nice actually. But can at level 50, if I lock my experience, can I go to any dungeon that has ever been created through the LFG tool? Will it just automatically go, oh, this guy's level 50, all right, he wants to go and do a WoD dungeon, or he wants to do a classic dungeon, or he wants to do BC or Wrath, and it'll scale to whatever level 50 power, all the mobs inside the dungeon will be level 50. Whether or not everybody else there with you is level 50, that doesn't matter. But will I be able to queue for any dungeon from any expansion, normal, using LFG at level 50? Question number one. So, I don't know. That leaves me a lot of interesting, I want to know, I just want to know, if I lock my experience for any one of my characters, because maybe I don't want to do Shadowlands on that character for a while, maybe I want to focus Shadowlands on my main, get my warrior done, but maybe I want to just go, just for fun, just go and do an old dungeon. And that leads into question number two. So let me pull up question number two here. How will normal dungeon item levels scale across the expansion? Now, I'm not talking about power, because as far as I understand, your power level will scale, no problem. If you're clearing old content right now and Shadowlands comes out, you should still be able to clear that exact same old content when Shadowlands releases. I don't know if you'll have to level up to 60 to do all of that as easy. I mean, it will be easier when you get to max level Shadowlands to do older content. But you should theoretically at level 50 still be able to do the old content. That's not what I want to know. I just want to know how will normal dungeon item level scale? Because if the answer to question one is yes, you can do any normal dungeon from any expansion. Well, if they all scale, then the real question is, okay, if I go do a classic dungeon, what will the item level of the gear I get out of classic be at level 50? And I might have a little bit of an insight. I have an insight into how I would like it to go. That might not exactly be how it will go, but let's take a gander real quick. So if I'm at level right now at level 120, level 120, at any level above 60, realistically, if you go into Blackrock Depths right now, and you let's see, let's go to all specializations, all no, I want all gear. Right here. So all slots. Okay, so if I go in right now to any dungeon, like if I go to Blackrock Depths at level 120 or level 61 or whatever, and all the item level is 66 for all the gear in here, except for the few choice pieces of epics that were in Classic. There were 72. Now let's bounce over to so let's go to Burning Crusade. So if I go to Burning Crusade and I want to run Hellfire Ramparts. Hellfire Ramparts, though, on normal scales to 105. But oddly enough, some of the 105 scaled gear in Burning Crusade, because it scales up to level 80, I believe. Yeah, because you can go BC from, yeah, so you can do BC or Wrath from 50 to 60 or 58, whatever. But anyway, so they all scale up to 105 for those two expansions right now. But you go to Heroic. Heroic is 91 for Burning Crusade, and then I think it's like 101 or 111 for Wrath. So interesting enough, the normal has a higher item level and a slightly higher stat weight for those. So then we go to let's go to Wrath real quick. So Wrath, let's just pick the Nexus, something simple. So that's 105. So the Wrath and BC dungeons at max level all scale to the requirement of whatever 80 was, which is 105, which is how they scale it right now. But if we go to Heroic, it's 111. So Heroic Wrath is still higher, which is fine, which does make more sense. So let's go to Cataclysm and Mist Pandaria. They should be the same. Let's see. Let's find let's go Stone Core. Stone Core is a good one. So in normal Stone Core, which interesting enough, didn't know you could get that in normal. Okay, it scales up to 120, 123, and that's a required level of 90. Well, it's not required level 90. That's just the highest stat weight it'll be at 90. I do believe. Yes, at 90, that's the highest it'll be. And then if we go to Mist and we go to Shadowman, it should be 123 as well. So that's how it scales right now. That's how normal dungeons scale. And Heroics scale differently based upon when they were released. I believe Warlords is in its own. I think Warlords is in its own scale bracket. So Warlords is 145. What about Legion? I think Warlords and Legion are separate. Normal. I have a shard. I guess all the normals were. I guess okay. So all the normals. So yeah, basically once you get to Legion, and Legion and beyond, it kind of starts scaling up with the Titan forging, and it can kind of bounce up to whatever it wants to be. And oddly enough, they're all epics and they're no blues, which are interesting. And then obviously go into Battle for Azeroth. But let's just go for a Tal Dazor normal. So a Tal Dazor normal right now, oddly enough, scales to 400. And that they weren't 400 when they first came out. That has something to do with the as the patch cycle goes out, they raise the item levels of normal and whatnot, and everything kind of scales up with it. But this kind of brings me a question. So if I can do any dungeon at level 50 from all the previous expansions, will all the gear kind of scale the same? Because in my mind, what it would happen is all the gear would all scale to 66, would be the item level stat weight. And so then we run into an interesting question about how they scale item levels for all of the previous expansions. Because let's say for big theory's sake, that you can go and do every single dungeon at level 50, and they all scale. Will they all kind of normalize the gear together? Or will they kind of just let the algorithm kind of figure itself out? Because in theory, possibly, if they all scale to the same item level, it's possible that gear from certain expansions in a twink level 50 sort of state would all be slightly better. I don't know. I'm just curious. I wonder what thoughts do you have? And so these two questions I propose myself once I get beta access. If I get beta access, because the open beta will be, I don't know, months from now. But these are questions that I plan on revisiting, and yeah, I'm just curious. I don't think so. Don't construe this with power. I think your power will be fine no matter what. I just kind of like the idea because if you didn't know, for the lore Alliance Lore Master series, what I did at level 50 or at level 60 on my Death Knight is I capped out my experience, so I wasn't gaining any more experience, and I ran BC dungeons over and over again to get item level 66 gear, because the item level 66 gear, if you didn't know, was actually higher than any of the raid gear, because the raid gear is 58. And actually, most of the dungeon gear was actually better stats than any of the raid gear, which was pretty sad. I thought this should have been different. I thought all the raid gear for every expansion should have been higher than the dungeon gear. I understand why it's not, but I thought it should have been. But anyways, that is the questions I proposed. Hope you guys have a great day, and see you around. Goodbye.